It's time for our May 2018 plan with me. This month we'll focus on blue florals, going through a bunch of different floral doodles, creating a graphic May cover page, a matching weekly layout, and even a beautiful May flowers goal tracking page. So let's get started.
Hi guys, welcome back. My name's Shayda Campbell. On this channel I do bullet journaling, hand lettering, and illustration, so if that's your thing, consider subscribing. And of course today we're doing our May Bujo with a goal tracker, a new weekly layout. And this month, if you're interested in printing my designs for the May cover page, the goal page, and of course our monthly layout, you can head over to my Patreon site because all of the channel bonus content is available for just $2 a month. So if you're interested in those printables, they're there for you. Okay, let's get started.
So to begin my botanical designs for the month of May, the first thing I want to do is write the word May in big block letters on the left-hand page here in my bullet journal. So I've marked my center of the page, and then I'm just writing out May in big capital letters in a simple print. And this is how I always do block letters. I'll just write out the word, make sure that my waistline is the same, which means the middle of the letter, like the cross on the A. And then I'll go around each letter and draw a sort of a border around all of them. And so doing the print first, I feel really helps me to make sure that my block letters are fairly even. So just write the word out, and then we're going to go around it and draw that border. And that's how I create my nice big punchy block lettering. As you sketch out your block letters, you may want to check that waistline again. So the middle of all the letters should also line up, not just the top and the bottom, but the middle portions as well. And you don't need your letters to be perfect, but you do want them to be fairly straight and all about the same size. And it's up to you how much you measure. If you're using a grid paper, like a dot grid, you might have some help there, and you're able to say, okay, each letter is, 5 squares, but I've done a pretty rough sketch and I'm not taking it too seriously. I can already tell that my M is a little off, and yeah, it's probably a little off since I don't measure. I think that's probably why. So it looked a little uneven, so I'm just going to try to fix that up, and then I'll fix that later with a little leaf or something. So what I'm doing here is just going over my word in pen. I've left some areas blank, like the A here, because I want the leaves to sort of come over top of the letters so that they're, it's all sort of this cohesive piece, and the letters aren't just sort of sitting flat on top. And then now that the letters are outlined, what I want to do is just draw all these leaves and flowers and vines sort of coming out from behind the letters. So all of the floral designs are going to sort of move outwards, so that the ones at the bottom of the word are going towards the bottom of the page. The ones at the top of the letters are going towards the top of the page. So think of the letters, as having a center line, and anything on either the top or the bottom of that is going to grow away from the center line, because you want this very lively piece that looks like it's growing. And I'm just drawing all kinds of flowers and little leaves and giving them lots of detail. You can see I'm using a lot of line shading here, and that's so that the white letters will really pop. We're going to have all these detailed flowers and leaves, and then this gorgeous block lettering that says May. So you can see it coming together. Lots of different designs. I'm repeating some patterns. So if I've got, one sort of leaf on one side, I'll repeat that same type of leaf on the other side to make the piece sort of look a little bit balanced and cohesive. This is definitely one of those cover pages in a bullet journal that takes some real time to complete, but it's a lot of fun to draw. I think because you're working with familiar forms, or if you love drawing flowers as much as me, these are familiar forms. But speaking of flowers, let's take a second and talk about how to draw some different flowers and vines in case you're not familiar. So I'm just going to flip to a new page in my bullet journal, and we'll do some different leaves and flowers, nice and close up so you can see. So the first things I want to do are just some basic leaves. You start with a curved line, a straight line, and you just draw these pairs of leaves all down the length of that line that you drew. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but just by changing the shape and the size of those pairs of leaves, you can get so many different variations and create all kinds of beautiful and interesting botanical doodles for your bullet journal. You can choose to color the leaves in. You can put some lines on them to indicate veining. So you can really, really get creative and create all kinds of variations. Another one that I've been doing lately is this variation on the same idea where you've got that one, you start with one line with the pairs of leaves, but then it keeps branching out and it keeps branching out and it can sort of go on forever, and it can really be a nice way to fill up space. You can just continue to put more and more twigs branching off, literally branching off, and sort of continue the pattern. You can keep things really, really tight and close together like I'm doing here, and it kind of almost starts to look like a pine bough. I like doing that one a lot, or maybe it sort of looks like a fern, so it's a little bit different. You can do ones that are really, really tiny, like just barely little dots along the length of the initial line that you draw, and it looks quite detailed and pretty. So now let's talk about a flower. This is one I've been doing lately where you start with a dark circle, put a little scallop around that dark circle. Then you draw the first 2 petals, then you fill in those second 2 petals, and then you do a double line, and you kind of leave a little space at the top there where the line doesn't meet, and that's to indicate that the petal is kind of curling up and forward. And then you just fill in the main part of each petal there with some simple line shading, and you get this really pretty flower. Put some leaves on that flower, and again, just another really fun design. And you can, of course, do some more line shading on the leaves, or if the flower is really dark, it kind of looks pretty to leave the leaves a little lighter. This is a variation on the same flower where you start with those 4 big petals, but then you add another 4 petals sort of peeking out from behind. You can sort of fill in the stamen there with some dark shadowy shading, add some line shading on the leaves, and then everywhere the petals are overlapping, you're going to add some line shading to indicate depth. And that's a fun one to draw. Now I'll often add larger leaves where my flowers are in a floral piece. So I'll add all those tiny little vine leaves, maybe in the upper part of the piece, and then down in the foreground where I'm placing these large flowers, I'll also do these large leaves. And I just kind of do this big floppy shape, add the veining, and I always do one side of the leaf a little darker than the other. And that's just a nice way to add some detail and add some depth as well. It looks like one side of the leaf is sort of not hitting the light. And then I just, as with the leaves for flowers, you just can do variations on that similar shape. And this is basically my go-to styles when it comes to drawing flowers and leaves. So I hope that's helpful if you're not super comfortable. Those are basically all the shapes and forms that I'm using for my May cover page here. And I'm just interweaving them and making sure that all of the flowers and leaves behind the letters sort of overlap. We don't want them to just sort of sit one by one. We want them to look very, like a wild garden. We don't want this to look flat or stiff at all. So try to draw them so that they look like they're overlapping a little bit. And, try to also think about size. Some flowers make them big, some flowers make them a little bit smaller. Same with the leaves. And then by repeating different sizes and repeating different styles of flowers and leaves, I think you'll end up with a really cohesive piece. So just variation in size, variation in form, and then repeat those variations on the left and the right, and you get it. And then once you've drawn a lot of flowers and leaves and your piece starts to look full and crowded, you're going to get to a point where you just want to fill in with dark blue or black, whatever you're using. And you can really see it in the A there. There's some little white flowers, and then behind them, I've just colored it in. And you don't want that coloring in, that dark space, to reach out beyond the letters. It wouldn't make sense, but anywhere that's really tight and close to the letters, feel free to color that in, because it'll make the letters pop, and it'll just add to sort of the depth and the darkness of this wild garden. But anywhere that's on the sort of perimeter of the letters, say like at the bottom of the Y there, you just want to make another flower or a leaf to fill that in, because you don't just want to color black right on the perimeter or the border of the letter. It just wouldn't make sense. But you can use your pen to sort of color in the middle of the piece, and it will add a nice darkness and a nice contrast. I just need to fill in a little bit more sort of on the corner of the Y here, but other than that space, I'm thinking I'm almost done with this piece. So at this point, I'm checking the balance of the whole piece. I want it to look even on all sides. I'm coloring in any negative space that's left between leaves and flowers on the inner bits of the piece. And I'm just adding some little berries and twigs sort of popping off of all sides to give the piece a nice bounce and movement and life and liveliness, because it is a garden. And then the last thing I want to do is I'm going to sort of redo the outline of each letter. So I'm just sort of thickening and going over the border of each of the letters, and I just want to make sure that they really pop and that the outline is nice and crisp. And then I will add a little bit of white gel pen to a few of these leaves. Some of them just got maybe colored in a little too dark, but that's it. I'm all done, and I'm super happy with the way that my May cover page turned out. So with the cover page done, and on the left-hand side, all I want to do on the right is just give myself a good calendar, and I'm going back to a larger calendar style for May. So I just drew a grid in pencil, really, really simple, using my dot grid to my advantage. And then I, in pen, can write the days of the week, and then I always just sort of do these little corners in pen on the calendar. I'll erase my entire pencil grid, and then I'm just going to underline just in my blue pen each day of the week, and I've just got sort of a nice simple month at a glance calendar, and then the bottom of the page is totally open for you to do notes, important dates, whatever. So now that we've sort of got comfortable doing flowers and we've got our cover page done, I thought let's take this a little further and continue our botanical theme for the month. So on the next page here, I've traced a circle right in the center of the page. I'm going to take my pencil and write goals in the middle of that circle, although you could use this design for any kind of tracker or whatever, but I'm just doing a fun, simple goal list. And then I'm going to continue with my flowers and leaves, and I'm going to draw a border of flowers and leaves all around this circle. So the circle, just nothing can go inside of it. Everything's on the outside. And while it's natural to place some of those flowers right on the line, you want to place some sitting out from it as well. That's a nice idea. And then just sort of have your leaves and vines going in every which direction. And if you did the May cover page as well, this is really easy, and you'll be like, oh, I'm so comfortable with these flowers. This is a great way to practice your flowers and leaves. And just follow some of those rules of design that you sort of laid out for yourself in the cover page, where you're doing different shapes of leaves, different sizes, you're repeating patterns or repeating shapes, and you're creating a beautiful cohesive design. This one comes together a lot quicker. And actually, when I got to about this point, I was like, that looks kind of pretty. So you could leave part of the circle open, just do it in pen, but leave it open. And then of course, go over the goals in pen, and you have this beautiful blue design. And then at the bottom of the page, I just did these very simple hand-drawn lines. I marked the middle of the page, marked off where I wanted each line to start and stop, and then just went over them in pen. And it was as simple as that. So at this point, we have this beautiful May flowers botanical cover page, our month at a glance calendar. We've got some goals for the month, and it looks so pretty and it's inspiring. And who wouldn't do their goals if their goals look that pretty? And then I'm just going to flip one more page here, and I've decided I'm going to try a slightly different weekly layout for the month of May. So I'll show you how I'm going to lay out my weeks this month. Each week, I'm going to give myself a tiny little calendar in the upper left-hand corner, and I just do that by simply placing each number on the dot grid. So it's the dot grid on the bullet journal paper that helps me keep that straight. And then I'm writing the days of the week down the right-hand side of the page, just doing simple hand-drawn border or a simple hand-drawn underline under each day. And then I've got Saturday and Sunday sort of as one section on the left-hand side of the page. And instead of an underline, they'll get their own sort of border. And then, wait for it, more flowers and leaves. So if you're not totally sick of drawing flowers and leaves, you can, again, kind of follow that same idea that you did for the circle. And you're just drawing this border of flowers where they're sort of emerging from the border and nothing goes inside. And Saturday and Sunday, hypothetically, should have less of a to-do list, so they get a smaller section on the page, but they are the prettiest. So that's my new weekly layout. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing these different botanical designs. Thank you very much for watching. I am really enjoying creating these monthly bullet journaling tutorials. Let me know what you'd like to see next month for June. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next week with a new tutorial. And patrons, be sure to go over and grab your monthly printables and the monthly front page. You can print that out and put it in your own journal, and you don't have to draw all those flowers.